Hello, friends. How's it going? Welcome to the fifth and possibly, not 100% sure, but possibly final update for the Arc Elementalist League starter that I had. You know, after the last video, I have spent the past day and a half or so farming, playing the game, having a good time, and it's been great. We farmed up a good chunk of currency, you know, not a ton, nothing impressive, but enough to do the thing that for me, a League starter often is for. And I think that this is particularly something that isn't talked about too often when it comes to League starters and builds in general and all of that. Everyone wants to know exactly how do I min-max this thing to the absolute gills and do absolutely everything in the game. Even for budget League starter guides that people put out, questions that go out there are still, can I do Simulacrum 30? Can I do flawless Breachstones? Can I do whatever? Can I do 100% Deli triple beyond maps? I think that those questions can be interesting if the answer is yes, but they're really not the core purpose of what a League starter is. So when it comes to the Arc Elementalist, I have spent a fair amount of time, honestly, just trying to 6-link a body armor that I rolled up that would be a nice jump forward in the quality of life. As I talked about in the previous video, we basically hit the, hey, we kind of finished the traditional regular leveling up, that really smooth process. And we're at the bottom of a really long ladder. You know, you could call it a cliff, you could call it a plateau. Basically, every upgrade that we're going to be going for right now will be multiple exalts. We also have to look at the balance of the currency and the opportunity cost and the time cost that it will take to invest into upgrading that build further versus what I like to do is, you know, I am someone who tries to make more builds, bring out more cool ideas for people. And really, I want to continue doing things like this where I throw out a bunch of interesting ideas and you all can follow along, throw out more ideas yourselves, and maybe get inspired and make your own builds. So as is obvious, what I'm trying to get to is I am very, very happy with where the build is right now. It does what I set out for it to do, and I might do some more upgrades in the future, but for now, I want to work on my next build. So let's get into where it is right now. Spoilers, it's almost identical to the last video, but also my thoughts about the future and kind of show off what it's capable of. All right, we'll run this 85 quant T16 Crimson Temple that has an Ambush Scarab, an Harbinger Scarab, and because we are those Strongbox gamers, an Ambush Scarab. As I was rolling up this map, I took a quick look at the character, and I think it's actually exactly the same as the previous video. I will have some proposals to show you what I'm thinking of for the future. It's going to be basically a combination of the prototype that I showed off in the very first video in the playlist, a couple of the modifications that we've thought of for some more defense. But let's just show the gameplay here really quick. As I showed in the last video, we're just flame dashing as quickly as possible. We're doing Orb of Storms and then our Arc, blowing things up and trying to be a little safe. So, you know, the way that I have this set up is I actually pushed the limit pretty far. I played around with my tree here a moderate amount. And last night I was doing triple beyond with Delirium, you know, and I was able to do it actually pretty decently. Now, I did die quite a few times from that. The defense isn't quite there yet, but that's really where the next step is. To me, the offense is really sufficient for basically doing anything you need in the game. Delirious T16 maps with triple beyond, I was actually taking down Abixoth and all of the big boys pretty comfortably, actually, and Kosas and Omniphobia. You know, it wasn't like a damage showcase, but it was enough. You know, the one thing that I would do if I wanted to push this build further is really just get into a little bit more of that defense so you can get through those maps without dying too often. So yeah, when I first set off to do this, there was, you know, there was a fair amount of perhaps fair doubting. And, you know, because it was just so untested about what it would actually feel like playing a build like this and, you know, just without truly knowing how the self-casting was going to feel like. But I think I did my due diligence pretty well there and proved to myself, and through actually playing it and testing it, proved that it was, you know, it can do what it needs to do. Anti-silence, that's the thing I would recommend on a jewel there. There's a lot of silencing mobs now in the game. Let's just wait for that to run out. Yep. So fun little story here is, whoa, okay. Yeah, so fun fact, this Seditionist touch, that permanent silence, that like AoE basically permanent silence, is actually what made me quit PoE the very first time that I played it. Because I was actually a self-cast occultist with Ice Nova, the first league that I ever played. And I just didn't understand what was going on. I didn't know where to look for debuffs and stuff like that. And that's just like, that's a really frustrating mechanic there. Back to the primary story here is I'm incredibly happy. Like T16 rolled up boss damage is, you know, it's nothing to show off, but it's respectable, right? And it's, you know, we're able to get through pretty challenging content pretty respectably and farm up what is necessary. And for me, that engine and that system is all that I really ask from a League starter. You know, as I said in the previous video, and I don't want to harp on it too much, the absolute needs to be deathless and trivial to play for all players and all that. You know, I don't think there's too many voices out there that are really countering that sentiment, and also not particularly talking about how the most important thing is that playing the game for yourself is all that really matters. And, you know, I want to stick to my guns here and continue playing the game that I want to play, how I want to play it. And you know, this is a thing that I like to do as a League starter, is have my League starter. Sometimes I do want to min-max it, but a lot of times, more and more recently, I'm not really into min-maxing my builds anymore. At least like my League starter build. I just like to take it to, I kill the bosses, I unlocked my Atlas, I'm able to farm, and I'm happy with that. And then let's get to the, you know, let's make that build that we put 50, 100, 200x into, and, you know, really go crazy. With that said, the next build doesn't exactly have to be really expensive, but I want more experimentation, more playing around with stuff. So yeah, there's not much more I want to do here except for maybe figure out a little bit more defense if I wanted to go all out there. But I'll show you guys what I'm thinking, and I want to continue to hear what you guys are doing. It's been really cool seeing all the ideas in the comments below, and that's just awesome. That's really all I wanted to do with this, is to spur some inspiration and some just excitement about owning and playing your own build. And I really want folks to rediscover that initial joy that you had when you first started playing the game, before you had all of these initial like meta assumptions, right? Like, imagine this is just a silly PvE game, right? Remember the first time you booted this game up and it was hilarious the first time you died to a corrupted blood, or it was the funniest thing when you were just running around and you got a really big crit and you shattered the whole screen. And that joy that you felt, like, let's try to rediscover that joy a little bit and get away from the like, oh, will X random YouTuber or Twitch streamer think that this is a good build or anything, right? Like, at the end of the day, this is just a silly player versus monster experience. If you're killing the monsters and playing a build that brings you joy, that is all that matters. Who cares about some, you know, random god gamer or something playing their own way? Like, you know, they can judge the game that they want to judge. Let's judge the game and play it how we want to play it. And the way that I think about this game is, fundamentally, it's just a sandbox with a lot of fun systems and mechanics that we can play around with. And as long as they're having fun with that, that is the only thing that matters. And this is my build, and I'm having fun. And I hope that you guys have your version of whatever build that you're playing and that you're having fun. So let's get into my thoughts about what I would change and what I am aiming for if I continued to play this. All right, so where are we at right now? The offense, honestly, feels fine. We could get a little bit more in a few places. Primarily, I would focus on getting a large cluster jewel in here. I actually just double checked in POB, and I am way over the crit cap. I'm actually way over. And if I had this body armor on, which has tier 1 spell crit, instead of this one that has tier 2 spell crit, I would actually be able to drop quite a bit of critical strike chance, to the point where I could replace both the diamond flask and this critical strike medium cluster jewel and focus way more on crit multi and just scaling the raw damage that we have. Just with those changes alone, I think we would be pretty close to about 2 million DPS, which for me is sufficient. There's a lot of builds out there that talk about 5, 10, 15, 20 million DPS, but 2 million DPS to me, that's about the breakpoint where I'm comfortable and happy farming even like 60% T16 Delirious maps. That's really sufficient, and more than that is generally overkill. More always feels better, but is really just not going to do that much for you versus being able to get more quality of life. Speaking of quality of life, defense is the #1 thing that I would like to scale as I keep working on this build. And really the kicker that is making me even more motivated to work on my next build is I have not been able to 6-link this guy. So what I really want to do is get away from armor ES bases and get into armor evasion bases. This will allow us to roll spell suppression on our suffixes and get pretty close to 100% spell suppression fairly easily by leaning more into reduced mana reservation, especially, I can't believe that this dropped while I was recording, but especially getting a level 4 Enlighten and getting some more reduced mana reservation. We could maybe even sneak in Grace with the Determination, and that's just going to make the defenses feel really, really good. To go along with that, I would roll up a nice ring with the Veiled +1 Endurance Charge and Endurance Charge on Kill modifier. That will just really shore up that base physical damage mitigation. The other reason why armor ES bases are better is I don't know why GGG does this. I think it's kind of just historical. They don't understand how bad ES kind of is. That's just my bias, but I think, ES is kind of in a weak place right now, especially after all the defense rework. They super value ES on the bases much more than armor and evasion. For an example of that, if we take a look at the strength intelligence body armors, you'll see that the highest armor that you can get is 496, and that's with only 85 ES. If you want the balanced one, that's only 461 armor and 110 ES. In my opinion, this doesn't even compare. 541 base armor and 429 base evasion. While things like Divine Shield and Ghost Shrouds are really nice layers if you can get them, more and more these days, folks just know that if you go armor evasion hybrid, that is just stronger overall. While having that base of energy shield to have a little bit of an extra layer there, especially as a spellcaster, we can leech a little bit of that. What's even stronger? Not getting hit in the first place, or when you do get hit, always taking less damage. Due to the very large damage numbers in this game, any percentage mitigation that you can remove from that incoming damage is going to be generally way, way more effective than just having a bigger pool but taking full damage. And that's really why things like CI and low life are so generally squishy compared to something like a really chunky armor evasion defensive layer these days. So getting a nice hunter body armor that has +1 curse, spell crit, and really nice armor evasion, which will allow you to get spell suppression on there. I think you can get like 34 on a body armor. That's just going to be way, way better for the defense, and honestly, even better for the offense. Since we can get +1 curse here, we can drop these 4 points, and then we have more flexibility for probably just putting points into cluster jewels. You can hit these rolls, and in fact, I hit this exact roll by just throwing it into Reforged Caster in the Harvest. It's a very, very, very easy craft. I think this was in roughly 10 Reforged Casters. I highly, highly recommend doing that. But what I would especially recommend is probably just buy a 6-link first, buy a Hunter's Exalted Orb, slam that puppy on there, and then do those Reforges. I thought that I could 6-link this, and I'm about 1,000 fusings in, and I really regret that investment. But that is the risk that you take. In addition to that, I would go for either a Hunter or Elder Stygian Vise. And here's a quick little example of that. I just brought it over to the Craft of Exile emulator, created a Hunter Stygian Vise. It does need to be eye level 84 plus. Hit it with the Fertile Catalyst. You want to throw it into Harvest, Reforged Life. Life modifiers are more common. This is actually a pretty crazy roll. I got lucky with this. I did spam it quite a bit, as you can see. But actually not that much, right? This is like 20 re-rolls. I got T1 flat, T2 increased. This is the key. This is why we want Hunter. Flash life recovery rate, some regen, and really good resistances as well. You can just do something like this. This will give you another couple hundred increased life, and that'll make a really big difference. The really nice thing is that's a really good generic belt that you can use on all of your future builds pretty much. So with just those 2 items and making sure you get spell suppression on your boots and your gloves, you should be at least in the 70 to 100% range. You should have a nice chunk of additional armor, and you should start feeling really, really comfortable. And then I would probably recommend going back to a shield and then something like this. So if you are able to hit that level 26 arc gem, I would recommend going for a pure armor shield, actually. You can get well over 1,000 armor, and then you can essence craft it to get critical strike chance for spells. You can get a Shaper or Redeemer Socketed Gems increased reservation efficiency, which will allow you to sneak Grace and stuff like that back in. And you can get the Veiled Prefix for flat, cold, and lightning damage. Basically, this identical shield is what I would aim for, but with an armor base instead of evasion. That and going back into Arcane Sanctuary, you should start feeling very, very comfortable defensively. He's watching along a little bit here. Isn't that right, Zeus? All right, maybe not. Maybe he's not too interested. So as with all journeys that have a beginning, a middle, they must have an end. I am really, really happy with how this all turned out. And the best part about all of this to me has been seeing you guys grow and really own your own builds. There's been absolutely awesome, really interesting, quirky ideas that I've seen in the YouTube comments that, while a lot of them don't fit how I want to play, I love that you guys are experimenting and finding ways to own the build yourself. The only true way to judge a build is if you are having fun playing it. Even if I don't like that idea or if it doesn't fit me, that doesn't matter. What I think about your build does not matter at all. If you like it and you're having fun, that's awesome and I'm happy. I've really enjoyed this journey. I don't think that I am 100% done with this character. I might try to take this flavor and do something a little bit different with it a little bit down the line. At this point, I've farmed enough currency to try something new on a different build. And I'm really someone who has to try a lot of different builds in a league. And I want to experiment with all the new things and all the new toys that we have. But I am more than happy in either Discord or on stream or in the comments below to answer your questions and try to help you out and help you really find that build that fits you. I'm just here presenting what I'm doing and how I'm having fun. And I want all of you to continue. If you love a build and you want to keep working on it, just keep going and use those ideas that you've gotten so far to push it as far as you want. With all that said, I got to get on stream in a few minutes and start leveling up my new character that I'm really, really excited about. And I can't wait to see how high and how far you all push your flavors of your own builds. So anyway, I got to go. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to have fun, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Goodbye.